You know what it is. It's the weekend, it's week 14, so now it's time for your completely unbiased rooting guide to see who can best help the Cowboys this weekend as the NFL slate kicks off. Now, from a completely unbiased point of view, we know that Seattle and Detroit are pretty much basically in. They're 8-3-1 and 8-4 respectively. They're going to make the playoffs. But that leaves us a pool of teams that are on the outside looking in, struggling to get the last division title, which is the NFC South, as well as the two wild card teams. Now, that leaves Atlanta, New York, Washington, Minnesota, Green Bay, Tampa Bay, and Arizona as the contenders. And all of them are powerful in their own right, but there are some more than others that the Cowboys would rather see in the playoff pool with them. These are the clubs that can still avoid having 7 losses on the season. We're going to eliminate for now any of the teams that already have 7 losses as being outliers and not really contenders to being able to make the dance. Now, being that we're completely unbiased, we're going to use DVOA to determine which teams the Cowboys would rather see. The Cowboys are number 2 in DVOA, right behind New England, who leapfrogged them after the games this past weekend, but no matter. Now, Atlanta is sitting there in 4th in DVOA, so we definitely want to get those guys completely out of there. Also being a good DVOA team is Washington. They're ranked 10th. Green Bay is ranked 12th. And the New York Giants are ranked 13th. So these are the teams that, based on this advanced metric, which basically says how good a team is performing above average in their game situations, we want those guys out of there. And we would much rather see Arizona, which is 22nd, Tampa Bay, which is 20th, and even Minnesota, which is 14th, make the playoffs over those other teams. Minnesota is very close with Green Bay and New York, but I would much rather see the Giants out of there because of the familiarity, so we're going to root for Minnesota to overtake them as well. Now, remaining completely professional and unbiased, we're going to stray from our usual thought process that the AFC over the NFC is the way that we want to go, because now there are NFC teams that we want to help the Cowboys. So the Arizona Cardinals travel to Miami. We want Arizona to win that game so that they can overtake some of the later wild card teams. Tampa Bay is hosting the Saints in a late game. We want Tampa Bay to win, even though they're hot, 4-game winning streak, and we're going to have to face them just next week. But Tampa Bay, we want them to overtake Atlanta and win the NFC South. Now, the Minnesota Vikings travel to Jacksonville. You'd normally say you want the AFC team to win. But again, Minnesota is a lesser team than the Giants and the Packers, so we would like them to overtake either one of those teams in order to make the playoffs as one of the wild card berths. Now, in an early game, Washington and Philadelphia square off. We know Philadelphia, they're garbage, despite what DVOA says. Somehow they're ranked 5th. It doesn't nullify the metric, but it does make you raise an eyebrow. But we want Philadelphia to defeat Washington. That way, Washington takes another loss, drops down to 500, and get them out of the playoff picture. Now, Atlanta travels to LA. It's going to be very hard for the Rams to bubble up and get this victory, but it would be very beneficial to the Cowboys to have Atlanta suffer another loss, give Tampa Bay the South lead, and then have Atlanta fall out of the wild card as the next couple weeks go on. The big game, the biggest game that the Cowboys have a rooting interest in, is going to be the Green Bay Packers against the Seattle Seahawks. Now, on one hand, a Green Bay loss, because we don't want them to be in the playoffs, would be beneficial to the Cowboys. But on the other hand, a Green Bay victory over Seattle would mean that Dallas could actually clinch a first-round bye and home field advantage based on the results of the other games, based on what they do in the Giants game in the Sunday night matchup. So on one hand, you have the immediate dividends of clinching everything you want and being able to play out the rest of the season as you prescribe. Make sure you check out Cowboys Wire a little bit later in the day to see exactly what I'm talking about in regards to that. Or you could have the Green Bay Packers be in a position where they will be out of the playoffs, and with Aaron Rodgers, you really don't want a quarterback like that in the dance with you. So for my intention purposes, it's very close, but I think I'm going to lean toward Seattle getting the victory here. They have the West sewn up. I'm not really worried about them coming from 2.5 games behind the Cowboys for home field advantage. Sooner or later, the Cowboys are going to clinch that, so I would much rather see Seattle beat Green Bay, keep Green Bay out of the playoffs, and then we'll worry about what we have to worry about later on. That's it for your completely unbiased, no fanboy involved Cowboys look at week 14 in the rooting guide. That's it. I'm KD Drummond. Salute.